if you all don't come today, I'm gonna be pissed. I'm gonna be pissed. Real pissed. Because y'all let me down the other day. And that triggered me. That did. And I feel like it's late enough. It's not on a bad day. I don't think anything else is happening. Still disappointed from last time, but hello. I want to do Sims again soon, but I really can't. I'm kind of doing too much because I have to do so much filming. Like I am going to be doing YouTube so much over January. So I kind of shot that in the foot real quick because I'm going to be doing my other channel daily. And I feel like I still need to film for my other one tonight. But I want to film for this one. I want to. Or I wanted to go live. Can you share it in the Discord bot? Can you share it? I'm still kind of pushing this outfit a bit, but I'm still fitting in them. I'm fitting in these clothes, even though they're a little bit tighter at this point. But I'm wearing them. I wore it all day, so we can do a problematic body check pretty soon. So I'm gonna try to keep the belly from flying out. Hello, Leo. This is problematic body check. For the new year, we're almost there. Anyways, we're almost there. We're almost to 2025. We're almost in a new year. I cannot even believe it. I don't even know. Like, I did want to talk about 2024 a bit. I think, like, astrologically and somewhat personally. I don't know if I want to talk about it that personally. But yeah, I think we should get into it. I think we should talk about it, and I might clean my room. I always say I'm going to, but I never do. So let me actually put this on live chat because I want to make sure I see everything, because VL Now is here, and VL Now says things that upset things sometimes. And I have to do laundry. I have to do the whole thing. I'm sure Lisa's mad because she's gonna go to bed. But yeah, I don't even know. Okay, let me ask, for those of you guys that are in the chat and are talking, how was your 2024? How was your project 2024? I'm gonna put this jacket on because I'm freezing in here. It's quite cold. I'm nervous that my belly's gonna show, so I'm gonna hide. I think it is showing. Oh my god. Oh my god. I can't even get it on over here. I'm gonna have to go over here. Gosh, how was Project 2024? I don't even know. I mean, I think that oh gosh, I had one hell of a ride astrologically the past few years because, well, honestly, there's like a lot of shit going on for me, or for everybody, but especially me. So we're going to talk about it. Period facts. So I've had like quite a hell, I've had quite a hell of a time over the past few years, astrologically, just because like my Saturn return occurred in 2022. So even from 2021, obviously 2020 was like, girl, I don't even really have to talk about it. So that was, wow. Going into 2021, I moved to Alabama, and that was the start of my Saturn return. So your Saturn return, it technically lasts 4 years, but it's especially concentrated in 2 years. So technically my Saturn return started in 2019, probably when I got my own place that year. And then it lasts until last year. That was when it was totally done, I think. But basically, it's most concentrated in 2 years. So my 2 years of concentration were 2021 and 2022, especially 2022, because that's when it occurred. So really, like, you have to look, I don't know if anybody's into astrology, but if you're coming up on your Saturn return, you have to understand that what the most important time is a year before the date it happens and a year after. Those 2 years are very important. So for me, it was February 2nd, 2022. So the first year, it was February 2nd, 2021, which it was the day that I put in my notice that I was going to leave El Paso. On February 2nd of 2022, which is the actual Saturn return, I made the decision that I was going to have a more public life, which was a huge deal. That was a huge decision. And it was very soon after that I started getting into political activism right after. And that was because of that decision. It also had to do with the fact that a lot of my Saturn return had to do with my hypothyroidism and my ED. So by February of 2020, February 2021, I was about to change my diet. I was about to stop. I was ending the E followed by the letter D stuff. The last time I BINGE'd was October 2020. And so going into that phase, it was the time when I was done with those behaviors, but it was very much a white knuckling moment. By the time my Saturn return actually hit in 2022, I was solidly done. I was over the behaviors. And my hypothyroidism was starting to recover to a point where I knew I was going to make it. I knew I was going to survive. And then I decided that I was going to live a more public life and do YouTube and really pursue it, because I was always ambivalent about YouTube. But prior to that, and not just YouTube, but just the public life aspect, I was very ambivalent to it because I had hella haters. I had this, I had that. There was just a lot going on. So after that, then you go into the rest of 2022, it was just hellish. It was insane. But I was really changing because then I finally started to sustainably lose weight that year too. So that all happened the year after my Saturn return. So that's a huge turning point for me. And then finally, we go into 2023. And you have to realize too, at this time that I'm going through my Saturn return, the United States is going through a Pluto return at the same time. So my home country is going into complete chaos in 2022. From 2022 to 2024, that is Pluto return years of the United States. Our country has been in absolute chaos throughout these years. And so I've been dealing with that while I was dealing with my own Saturn return. Crazy. Then we go into 2023 and 2024 and 2025. And what's important about these years? These years are a luminal phase. They're in between. So we're in between major eras of life, universally. And then we're also dealing with the end of the Pluto return of the United States, which has technically been active from 2019 until 2025. Because again, with returns like that, the years before and the years after, they're very significant. The actual returns occurred in 2022 and 2023. I think there might have been just a touch of it at the very start of 2024, but it was primarily 22 and 23 that was happening. So max chaos was really during those 2 years. And but for me personally, again, because it's even more for me, I go right from a Saturn return, which is a very important time in a person's life, right to a Pluto changing of sign, which is also occurring at the same time. So Pluto has now been in transition between Aquarius and Capricorn. So it's been in Capricorn, it's been going into Aquarius, and it went back into Capricorn, etc. It's been going back and forth. And as a Scorpio rising, Pluto is my ruling planet. So basically, this has been like an extremely chaotic few years for me. Life defining, very big. And for a lot of us too, even universally, because Pluto return of the United States is a huge deal for anybody, especially who lives here. It's been crazy. And Pluto changing sign, it is a luminal phase for all of us. So basically what I'm trying to say is these 3 years, 23, 24, 25, they're all transitionary years. So we are really going from one thing to the next, one major era to the next major era. And 2023 was all about endings. It was a lot of times very harsh endings, brutal endings, really bad conflicts and splits and these types of things. These were all happening a lot in 2023. It was primarily focused on conflict and endings, severe endings. 2025 is about harsh beginnings. So it's very much a year where you have abrupt starts, crazy new beginnings, chaotic new beginnings, jarring new beginnings will be happening in 2025. That can be very emotionally upsetting, but also exciting, right? But 2024 is like dead in the center. 2024, I think it was a very well-timed year for Jupiter and Gemini because it really has been a year of having a foot in both worlds. It's a year that is not an ending or a beginning. It's like a blank space. It's like an in-between, a complete in-between to something I can't even really believe, which makes sense for me because personally for me, these 3 years, 23, 24, 25, they're primarily my weight loss years. So it's kind of like 2023 was the end of super morbid obesity, essentially. I didn't technically get out until this year, but all the work behind it happened in 2023. 2024 was that morbid phase and kind of an in-between phase. And 2025 is probably when it will end, when I'll be done. So I think when we think about 2025, a lot of people, it really depends on your perspective. They see it as either an ending or a beginning. I see it as a beginning. So I'm a beginning girly pop. And as far as astrology, as far as astrology, I see it as much more of a beginning phase, not an ending. 2024, there's a lot of endings in it, but it's also beginnings, right? Yes, John, astrology. 2023 was really the major endings, though, because Saturn went into Pisces at that time. Pluto went into Aquarius. It was when a lot of these cycles that we had been on forever, they just broke. And I had already been through breaking cycles with my Saturn return. So I've had like a crazy, like I said, truly crazy few years for me personally, but also for the United States, for all of us with the changing sign of Pluto. So it's been very tumultuous over the past few years. I would say, especially living in the United States, especially, which of course I live here, Okay, interesting, Lisa. I can see that. I can definitely see that. I think for me, it's really like 2021 to 2024 for me, it had to do with thyroid recovery, essentially. And I feel like getting out of 2024, my thyroid is probably done. Like, I feel like it's actually going to be okay. Which means that 2025 for me, it might actually be a normal weight loss year. It might actually seem easier for me. So I have been getting some comments on my channel where they're like, well, remember, like, as you get to the end of the weight loss journey, or as you get there, it slows down or it's not as much. And I'm like, I don't know if that'll be true for me, just because I was really, really hypo. So it's kind of like once you're not hypo-lish anymore, if you count the calories, you're going to lose the weight. It's just reality. And I do plan on my calories going down with weight loss. So if it's, yeah, yeah, I don't know, Lisa. I don't know. Yeah, because I think it has to do with appetite, and it has to do with like if I'm too tired. And if I'm already feeling pretty good, it's literally December. I feel like I did in March, and it's December. I'm getting out of this. Like, this is the end of the thyroid problems. I'm getting out. So, yeah, yes, I agree, Lisa. I'm also going to be going to the gym an extra day of the week. I'm going to have to up it to 3 days a week. So 3 days a week, full body. That's advanced. Like, we're getting towards, I'm not going to be average fitness anymore. That's definitely going to speed up weight loss. Absolutely. That's a lot. So I'm talking like I go to the gym, I do full body. I'm going like 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours, 3 times a week from probably March. That's a lot. So no, I will probably continue to lose, especially if if I'm not too hungry, which I don't think I will be because, oh yeah, yes, Lisa. Not always, but 2.5 hours at least usually. I think if I blast through it, like if I've done the weights, like if I haven't gone up in weight in a long time, I can do it in 2, but it's typically 2.5. That would be like an average session for me. And yeah. Yes, exactly, VL. No, I'm just kidding. Oh my God, VL. I did it on my main channel, Lisa, on my delusional vlog. I talked about it, but essentially, I guess I can tell you really quick. I just do all the machines. So biceps, I do the dip machine. I do, there's a new one at my gym now. It's the lateral raise. So I started that one. I do row, chest, pectoral fly, and I think it's rear deltoid. That one too. I do 4 sets of 10. And then I've just slowly gone up in weight. I do shoulder. I think that's all of them for the arms. And then I do abs, lower back. I do the one where you turn, so obliques. And then I do lower abs. So I do a machine where I sit and I lift up weight with my lower abs because I can't lift my body weight yet. But I do 127 on lower abs. So that's pretty good. Like, I have some lower ab strength, but I can't lift my, 270 ass or whatever the fuck I am right now. I don't even know what I am right now. Oh wow. When I used to go to the gym, I would put my phone in the locker to enhance the Sparta. Oh my God. I must be a speed machine because I do 6 machines, 4 sets of 10 in like 20 minutes. Oh my God. Yeah, well, I do, like I said, I'm not done yet. So it's all that. So that's like my abs and back. So it's lower back, abs, obliques, lower abs. And then I do calf. This part, I forgot what this is called. Leg extension, the back side of the leg. These ones where you open, the ones where you close, ass. And then I do leg press. So all that combined, that's my whole thing, basically. And then as far as the weight, I started pretty normal, I guess. And then I just went up over years. It's been years of time. the leg raises are hard, but I've broken it up into 4 sets of 25, so I think it made it easier. Not sure if that will affect the results. Interesting. Okay, fair enough, John. But yeah, so I think all I'm saying is I think it might be easier to lose in 2025. I had a feeling about it. I don't know if it was some weird intuitive thing or if it was just a feeling I had, but I had a feeling that 2024 would be slower in a way, just because I think too, so much of this year I had to do a lot of like practical life stuff and like balancing life. Like I couldn't just 100% focus on losing weight. And it was a very overwhelming. So I think one thing I will say about this year is it was very overwhelming. I I don't know if I've ever been spread as thin as I have been this year. Like, because, doing the job that I have, my basic bitch job, doing YouTube full time the whole year pretty much, losing weight at the same time, and then, going through some type of luminal stuff in between phases romantically this year too. That was a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Not to mention, like, coming to a post E followed by the letter D mindset, all the mental work that went into letting all that go and, like, having that kind of vacuum, but also having that anxiety sublimated into my car. And then I had a lot of very severe practical issues and financial problems in 2024. And that was really hard. All of that was incredibly difficult this year. So I know Caleb did message me today, and he just asked me, he said, how was 2024? And to me, I said, I honestly, I felt like this year was very difficult, but extremely effective. Like I got a lot done. I feel like this is probably one of the years that I've accomplished the most I've ever accomplished. The only thing that can compare to it is 2019, because that year was actually insane too, what I accomplished that year. Which it's interesting, Jupiter was in Sag back then, Jupiter's in Gemini now. It's interesting. So I must be, when it's in those signs or like that axis, that I start to get highly activated. But I think for me this year, I just knew astrologically about the Saturn Jupiter square, and it's really important to like work very hard if you want to be successful, especially by next summer. And so I was like, I'll do it. Like, I'm going to hate it, but I'm going to do it. And so from August till now, it's been hell. I've been working extremely hard. I haven't really had time. I haven't even been as tortured as I typically, as I was before then, because I didn't have time to be tortured. I was busy working all the time, busy constantly doing things. My mom, she's always telling me I'm such an asshole, or she's like, she doesn't say I'm such an asshole, but she's just like, you're so rude, or like, blah, blah, like, you should just live alone, da, 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 because you don't ever want to spend time with me, or you always have an attitude, or whatever. She always says that. And I'm just like, she does not understand how hard I'm working. Like, I don't have time for anything, or like, I don't know. It's like, I don't have time. I have almost no time for any kind of fluff conversation. I don't know how to describe it. I'm just not on that wavelength. It's like, this is a hard time, especially when these squares are exact, which it just was exact like last week. It's still there. It's like I'm trying to work. People are crazy in public. People are acting stupid as hell. People, I'm driving on the street. People can't drive. I see a lot of car accidents. People are running around with chickens with their heads cut off. It's hard out there right now. Like if people are acting crazy. Like they're acting totally in chaos at this time. And it's happening when I'm a little bit irritable. I'm not doing bad. I'm not doing anywhere near as bad as I did like in 2023. That's the thing that pisses me off too about my mom sometimes, is she has no memory of like anything before now, before the moment. So she can't remember how bad it was, like how bad I used to be, like 2 years ago. It was crazy. You know, there were certain moments in 2023 where I legitimately questioned my sanity because of how intense the weight loss side effects were in 2023. It was insane. And I had always had those side effects, but like, I had never, ever been able to push past it. Every time my brain started to completely fry in weight loss, which by the way, that happened every time I would go to lose weight, I stopped because it was like I felt like mentally I was going off of a cliff. But in 2023, doing it in a pro-thyroid way and like not eating the seed oils and PUFA and all these different things, not having all these things, I just was like, um, I didn't have any, I don't know, like I had too much momentum behind the weight loss. It was also like the exercise that I had done. Like there were so many things in 2023 that I would have had to do to stop losing weight that I could not stop losing weight. So I think a lot of people, they just don't lose weight right. They don't lose weight with their thyroid. They lose weight with their adrenaline. And when you do that, it's really easy to stop. Because I used to do that a lot with keto too. Like I was super adrenal when I was keto. And if I ever just needed a break from that mental fry, I would just eat carbs and I'd immediately stop losing. It would be like, boom, like you stop. And it gave me a control over it, which obviously it did not work out for me whatsoever, because I abused it horrifically with an ED. You know, I abused that control. But with the thyroid weight loss and being off of PUFA for years, like I couldn't stop it anymore. It's like I would have had to have just downed PUFA for like months. I would have had to eat like bunch of seed oils for months, which was never going to happen. Because I don't know if you guys know, but if somebody has an ED, they don't do it forever. You don't binge forever. That's not the way it works. You do it for like a spell. So in order for me to stop losing weight in 2023, I would have had, especially because I was so big, I was huge. I was really big. You have to eat a lot of fucking calories to maintain that. And I was not hungry anymore because I wasn't as hypo. And then it's like there's just all this leverage. And so I wasn't able to stop. So that summer, my brain, it just fried. It totally fried. And it was very insane. It was very insane and very intense. But it's like, I think of how I was then versus now. And it's like, I go to the gym. I'm a little bit irritated. I'm a little bit irritable. Before I used to go to the gym, I would get very depressed. In 2022 and 2023, I would get like, especially 2023, I would go to the gym and I would get oftentimes even like unalivingly depressed from going to the gym because of the excess in fat burning or the increased fat burning. It would completely fry my brain. It was hard. So when people are like, oh gosh, like losing weight is so hard and they only have like 60 pounds to lose, which is basically what I have to lose now, I'm like, it isn't. Like, it's hard to be hypothyroid. Like, that's hard. It's hard to be super morbidly obese in general. It's hard. Those things are just hard. It's hard to recover from an ED. That is hard. Losing weight is not hard. Like, it isn't. All those other things are what's hard. Like, all that stuff, that's hard. Fixing your thyroid is hard. That is difficult. That is hard. I don't think adrenaline makes you lose weight. My job is super high level stressful at times, and in my opinion, stress makes for putting weight on. Yeah. And adrenaline doesn't make you lose weight, but if it will if you're in a deficit. So you can lose weight in a deficit using adrenaline versus with thyroid. It's different. Yes, exactly. People rely on it to do things because their thyroids are dead. Yes, exactly. So that kind of stuff is difficult, but losing weight is not difficult. You just count the calories and it comes off. That's it. It's nothing dramatic. I've said it many times on my channel. It's boring even. So, I think, like I said, that irritates me about my mom. She doesn't acknowledge any any improvement whatsoever. And there's drastic improvement from 2 years ago, like so much improvement. I can't even believe it. Like I'm at a point now where I used to be unalivingly depressed after going to the gym. Then when I was more morbid and tortured, I would become extremely anxious. And I used to call it gagging. Like I used to tell Eric, like, I went to the gym, I'm gagging tonight. Like this was happening this year. I'd be like freaking out, obsessing, spiraling over stuff. And I'd be like, I have to like watch a horror movie or something. So I'd watch a horror movie with him because I need to distract my mind because I didn't have the ED anymore. So I would just spiral about everything and anything. And it would drive me nuts. But it's like now nothing happens after I go to the gym. I just feel a little bit sore. And I'm like, this is really easy. So this isn't hard at all. Like now I just go to the gym and I'm sore and I'm a little bit irritable. After I'm like slightly irritable. It's like that is not difficult at all. So I just think, I don't know, like, because I know a lot of people that take Ozempic, they have all those psychological things I've talked about in this stream. Like they have that too. So I do think it has to do with the actual obesity or the ED or something. There's something going on with that because when they take Ozempic, they feel the same way because they're not eating. So something's going on. But it's like, to me, because I had somebody comment on my channel too where they were like, oh, I never get any pleasure from going to the gym. I never have in my life. It's like, I never did either until now. Now I do. Now when I go, I get a little bit of a high. I feel pretty good when I'm doing it. Like when I'm there, I feel good. If I don't go, I feel like I really need to bump a line. Like I feel horrible if I don't go. I feel awful if I don't go, actually. Like that's partly why I've had to continue to go. And then I don't even feel that bad after. Like I went up in weight with my legs, which I used to completely gag after. Like I'd have like a total like, I hate it here moment. Like just imagine that guitar playing over and over again. Like, and I'd get really, really, really depressed. I don't get depressed anymore. Like a lot of that's, and we're in the dead of winter, you guys. Like I haven't even been depressed at all. Like since I went back on my deficit, I don't even think I've been sad. I really don't. And that's crazy because I went to the gym twice in the deficit. I'm even a little bit hungry right now. I'm even serotonin-y as fuck sometimes still. Like I get rosy cheeks. My hand was twitching and weird. Like I was having weird serotonin symptoms. I don't even get depressed. So it's like, I don't think I'm going to have an issue losing weight. I just don't. I have a more normal weight loss now, which I guess that's kind of the end of Pluto and Capricorn. There's a reason why it was so hard for me to lose because I had all these barriers. And I guess Pluto and Aquarius is just like, okay, it's normal now. Like, congratulations. You just have a normal weight loss journey. Like, I don't have to stop filming because I'm so ill that I feel like I'm going to die. So I have to stop filming because the weight loss is making me sick. I don't have to, be a tortured lesbian all the time and try to film around that. And then like I was still filming and then I had to be like, I'm sorry, I'm really depressed and I have to still film. Like it was hard. Or like Brat and like extremely low dopamine in the autumn and then that going away too. It's like, oh, I guess I'm like going up the escalator or something, because it's like I think it's all difficult, but at the same time, it's like, what else are you gonna do? Are you just gonna stay in it forever? I couldn't. You have to get up that escalator, like, but there are reasons why people don't wanna stop eating, because you have those issues, especially people, like I said, I think especially people that have the ED, they have those problems. And so they're sitting there and they're like getting extremely depressed without constantly eating, extremely tired, extremely ill. And it's like, because the fat is toxic, the fat on you is toxic. And you have to deal with what all that you've eaten. I had to deal with everything I ate. I mean, it sucks. But it's like, now I hear people tell me, I've never had pleasure from going to the gym. It's like, I never did either. I never did. But it's like you just do it and then eventually you do. And I don't know. There's something, I'm going to throw some shade on millennials. There's something in the collective millennial brain, which is like, even some of Gen Z, there's a little touch of this. They probably learned it from millennials. But there's something within millennials that if something is hard, you just don't ever do it. It's like, or you just immediately give up. And then you believe it's impossible. Like, that's a very millennial coded thing. This is hard, so therefore it's impossible. Therefore I give up. And it's like, you could enjoy going to the gym. You have to just push through and then you will enjoy it. But the millennial spirit says, it's hard. I haven't liked it in a year. I'm giving up. And that's kind of that millennial attitude, which is cringe as fuck, which is probably part of what Vivek was talking about, which I agree, Lisa. The whole visa argument, whatever. I don't know. I didn't even find that interesting, what he said, but to me, the American mediocrity, that was fascinating to me because it's true. There is truth to it. It doesn't mean that everybody's mediocre. I don't think so. That's not true. It doesn't mean that immigrants aren't mediocre, because a lot of them are too. But I think Americans, there is a lot of mediocrity, and it was celebrated to be mediocre in the 90s and the 2000s. It absolutely, especially the 2000s. I think it was even worse in the 2000s. Like, it was very extremely celebrated to be mediocre. I don't know why. It always kind of irritated me. But like, as a millennial, if you were successful, everybody immediately wanted to cut you down and basically tear you a new asshole. If you were successful at anything, if you were good at anything, if you had something going for you, people would just get jealous and try to take it from you and try to shut you down. And that just kind of continued into adulthood for us with cancel culture, which again, millennials. So that's more younger millennials. So that's probably more like my age that started it. And then Gen Z just ran with cancel culture like crazy. But now nobody cares what they think anymore. They kind of overplayed their hand. So nobody gives a shit. But they did for a little bit. So yeah. No, there was. Like, if you were pretty, people would want to take you down a notch or something as a millennial. So people didn't want to be pretty anymore. And like I said, I do think there's some of that in Gen Z, but I don't know. It was just, it was a lot. So I think it's like, it just made everybody mediocre, and then there was the millennial idea too, that was like, everybody has to be the same. Everybody has to be the same person. So there's this ideal person, and that's you, and you have to be that. And if you aren't, then you're a failure. But that ideal person was mediocre. That ideal person was like a basic bitch that traveled and, was worldly or whatever the fuck. I mean, it was gay. kind of too. It's kind of gay, actually, what that ideal version of what you were supposed to be was. It was like, you know a little bit about everything, you listen to a little bit of all music, you travel the world, you're a whore, you are open-minded, that kind of stuff. You know, that was like, oh my gosh, that's the ultimate millennial. You're educated, whatever that's even worth, you know, it's like, which it ended up being worth nothing for most millennials. But it's like, that was this ideal version and it was a mediocre thing. So I do think Vivek had a point with American mediocrity being celebrated, because it is celebrated and it kind of still is, but I think it's a millennial thing, you know, honestly, because I don't know, like, ugh, but it's there, and I think that's why it stung a lot of people, because there's truth to it. And I know people don't like to hear this, but like other countries, they do view a lot of Americans as mediocre. They do view a lot of Americans as not really trying, or they don't work very hard, or they don't really do much, or like they're fat. And that's true for a lot of Americans. So, I mean, I don't hate Americans or anything. Obviously, I am one. I'm about as American as you could possibly be. But it's like, I think we have to look at, like, there's some truth to the criticism. Like, there is, you know? So, but again, that has nothing to do with the visa. That whole thing, that was weird. And that it did not connect. Yeah, exactly. He had a point, but it was very poorly stated and wrongly applied. Exactly. And he worded it very insultingly and very rudely. And I think that was stupid too, because I think it's like, when you have something to say that's kind of important like that, it needs to be said well, and it wasn't. It was said really shittily, but there was truth to it. Because I think about, like, I was talking to Lisa, literally, I was thinking about like Thrift Store, that Macklemore song. That song is not a good song. And it was literally like celebrated like it was the best song ever. I mean, so many American TV shows, they suck. They're awful. So many American books are horrible. Like 50 Shades of Grey is one of the worst written books ever, and it's completely celebrated and it's totally mediocre. And it's like, there's truth to a mediocrity being celebrated in the United States. Like, I don't know why it's so, like, I don't get it. But it's like, I mean, maybe it does have to do with the schooling system. That might be true. Like, I don't know. But at a certain point, we're adults, you know, and you have to kind of get over it. No, I get it. But still, I'm not saying it's all millennials' faults. I'm just saying millennials are like the major thing, where they really love mediocre. They're like, yes, woo, you know, they're like so about it. Um, and then older Gen Z is kind of like that too. But older Gen Z copies millennials. I'm sorry, they do. It's like your Sabrina Carpenters and stuff. Like, she had a total mid. She had so many mid eras. She was basically mid as fuck. She was trying to be the mediocre millennial that the millennials wanted her to be, and she was mid. And then she like got the stick out of her ass, and look at her now. You know, she's actually doing something now. She actually has good songs. So it's like, I don't know. Millennials, I will say, when they're special, they're super special because they had to fight the mid. True. That's true. Well, I think too, it's just, and some of it, there is like a little bit of Gen X in there. But again, we learned from Gen X as millennials. Like, we learned. And there are a lot of kind of mediocre Gen X too. But especially like they became teachers and that kind of stuff. Because like being a teacher, this is kind of harsh, but I'm just keeping it real. We're having a real conversation. But back in our day, being a teacher meant that you were a failure, which I know is really harsh, but there was literally a saying that was, if you can't do, then teach. And that was kind of the attitude people had. So our teachers as kids were Gen Xers that didn't really succeed in anything. So they were very mid, as they were mid themselves in a lot of cases. So then they taught us to be mid too. So it wasn't like all of Gen X was mid. No, like there were good Gen X, but they weren't teaching us. It was the mid ones that were, and especially in university, like my professors that were Gen X were horrible. Like truly, like some of the dumbest people I've ever known in my entire life. I am shocked that they are a professor. It showed me that the education system has zero value because of how dumb they were. And they were teaching me. Like I had an English professor. He was one of the dumbest people I've ever known in my entire life. And he was a Gen X and he was extremely mid. And he couldn't teach. I didn't know what the fuck he wanted. And I'd be like, what are your expectations for these papers that you want me to do? And he couldn't really tell me. And I'm like, what? What the hell? Like, and I look back on it now and I'm like, oh, he was a shitty teacher because he couldn't tell me what he expected. And I was supposed to just suss it out, feel it with my heart or something, and understand what he wanted. I never understood what he wanted. And I think it was just very subjective. And yeah, it's just, ugh. So I think that happens a lot too for millennials and stuff. And I don't know, like there's the millennial tendency to just embrace. It's like, let me throw out all the good things that authority figures taught me, but let me take on all the bad. And that's especially evident in millennial parenting, where they somehow take the worst qualities of boomers and Gen X, and then they throw out all the good. So then there's just pure shit for Gen Alpha. I feel so sorry for Gen Alpha, for those kids. Yeah, it's soft parenting, but not really, because it's also like, it's soft parenting, but also you revolve around me at the same time. So it's like bad all around. It's just bad. Where it's like, I don't know. So I think that, because I've seen that too, like where millennials are like, oh, I don't want to give my kids any guidance at all. It's like, okay, but then you just don't want to parent. Like, just, you're lazy. That's mediocre. I'm sorry. Like, Vivek has a point. So to me, it's like he has a point in those areas. Like, that's mediocre parenting. That's not even mediocre. That's bad, actually. But it's like, that's what I think about a lot too. And I don't know. It's like, is it a bad thing to have a higher standard for ourselves? You know? And I guess I'm just feeling really harsh today, but, you know, of us millennials that are left, are we going to be mediocre still, or are we going to hold ourselves to a higher standard? Because a lot of us have died. A lot of millennials are dead now. And it's just going to keep going up and up. Like, so many of us never got over addictions, never got over ED, never got over freaking, I don't know, like weirdness, like could never handle living in reality. Like, there's a lot of millennials that are like that. Yes, John. Like, especially 2022, so many millennials unalived that year. And it's been building every year, basically. Like, this died suddenly too. Like, it's been building since the 2000s, but really since, like, it just kind of get worse and worse. So, like, people started talking about it in 2022, but it had really been bad from like 2008 or like the 2000s, and it kind of kept getting higher and higher and higher. And then by 2022, there were so many people that died suddenly that people started talking about it. Like 30-year-olds just dying of a heart attack, and so many people, millennials, getting cancer at like 25 and shit like that. Like, we're not healthy, So I try to tell you guys that are younger than us, like, you can't be like us, you shouldn't. Because a lot of millennials have been on a total highway to hell. And I know I'm being harsh on millennials right now, but I just think it's necessary, honestly, because, like I said, for those of us that are left, which I think literally enough of us have died that it is in part the cultural shift of Pluto and Aquarius, which is insane because a lot of millennials that probably did die, they were so self-destructive, and not only self-destructive, but they wanted to tear everyone else down with them, including like all other generations and everybody. It's a horrible attitude, kind of like fat acceptance in general, where it's like it's not enough for you to be hugely fat, but you want to encourage everyone else to do that. That's a millennial thing. But they died. A lot of them have died, you know? And when it came to like the open border and fentanyl and stuff coming across, like a lot of people have died. And some of Gen Z too. But like I told you, it's the older Gen Z copying us. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't be a Sabrina Carpenter. Don't try to copy us with the midness. She never got anywhere until she stopped. Then she finally stopped. And look, she took off, you know? It's kind of funny. She's a really good example of like older Gen Z trying to be mid-millennial, you know? But yeah, it's bad. So if you look it up, they do talk about the died suddenly thing. It's been happening younger and like people dying, but that's been building for years. So yeah, but a lot of millennials just don't care at all about health or anything. So, and I get it because I used to be that way, but I almost died. You know, it's cute until it isn't cute anymore. Then it's like, ooh. So it's real, you know, and a lot of like millennials, we're getting deeper into our 30s and 40s and all this stuff. Like people are dropping like flies up in here. So it's like, you know, for those of us that are left, I think we should hold ourselves to a higher standard. You know, I really do. And even if Vivek's words stung, which they did sting me too, there's truth to it. Of course, though, like you said, Lisa, it's totally misapplied and badly stated. That's also very true. And it was a huge blunder politically. I don't know what the hell that was, but maybe it was just like some deep truth coming out or something, and he just had a moment. But it, you know, like I don't really like the American bashing either because I feel like a lot of other countries they don't really have a room to judge like whatsoever. Yeah, probably Lisa. So to me, I'm like, you need to be like on your shit. Like if you're gonna shit all over America, like your country better be like on fire. And usually they're not. Like I'm sorry, but like a Canadian saying something about America, they need to shut up, for example. Um, they just do. Like I'm just gonna be real with you. An Australian saying something, they really need to shut up. They really need to shut the fuck up. They super need to shut up. But I'm just saying, as examples. Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying, Lisa. Like, usually a country that's on their shit, or at least close to being on their shit, they don't talk shit as much. Even like England, some do talk shit, but it's usually like a light criticism because they kind of are aware that they're struggling too, but we're kind of similarly struggling. So it's like, I feel like sometimes there can be like a mutual respect with certain cases. But America is like having a breakdown, you know, like we're really it's having a moment and it's on the global stage. It's been very horrifying, honestly, and very obvious and all these things. So it's rough. It's been rough. And I don't know. So I don't really talk badly about other countries as much. Um I'm telling you, I'm aware. I'm on the pulse. I have my 5-wing watches. Okay, my 5-wing observes. But yeah. Well, I don't think a lot of other countries talk as much shit. Like, but I see a lot of Australia talking shit, and they have no right. I'm just saying, like, no right whatsoever to talk any kind of shit. I think at this point, even Canada has broken. Like, they're not really even talking shit anymore, but they did for a lot of years. That's why I mentioned them. They're like an honorable mention. But they stopped. I think Canada just broke. They're like, damn. Because they're struggling a lot too. But they hate Trudeau anyways. Like, they hate Trudeau in Canada. They do. Don't believe the narrative. They don't like him. It's just because of their electoral process that he just happened to win again. I don't think he's going to win the next time. I think he's out. But Trudeau has been horrible. He's been a little tyrant for them. I feel bad for Canada, honestly. But I feel bad for us. Like I said, it's hard to judge anything as an American right now. It's like, you know, ooh, you know. And I think like a lot of America is, I feel like we're having like a come to Jesus moment, and we have to just, you know, reflect and change. You know, I've been so happy to see so many people being receptive to like the obesity conversation, for example. It's a huge issue in our country, and people are actually being more open to finding solutions. And like I said, even though Vivek said it wrong, I'm going to take the good of what he said and try to integrate it a bit. Because even though my body is going to be mediocre as fuck in 2025, I'm going to try to get out of that by the end of 2025. You know, I want to be in good shape by the end, because I don't think we should accept mediocrity. I just don't. And that does also include within fitness. I think we should all be as fit as we can, you know, for example, which that has to do with my activism, and that's more so what I will focus on. But I see a lot of people that are like, I'm losing weight, but I'm gonna stop at 230 or 220. And I'm like there's one woman, she's like, I'm gonna stop at 220. And I was like, that's big still. You know, like if I were to, that'd be like me stopping now. So imagine if I told you guys, I'm done. This is where I'm at, period. It's like, no. No, 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 no. Like, just because you're not like near death health wise doesn't mean that you should have mediocre health. That's mediocre. It's like, oh, you know, it's settling in a way, like, in my opinion. So I think it's just, oh, look, I've had all these things on my mind the past few days, for sure. Because I'm telling you, like, people will not shut up about the freaking visa thing. And to me, like, I don't have a hard stance on it personally. Like, I don't think there's any like blanket answer for that, because it's like it depends on the context, it depends on what area, what's going on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, other regulations around it, all of it. It's like a huge policy discussion. So can I sit here and say I'm totally against H1B or whatever it's called? No, I can't. Can I say I'm totally for it? No, I can't. I think it, certainly in the area of engineers, no. Not at this time. We have enough people with those degrees where we'd be okay. So sorry, Elon, you know, but we're going to need you to hire American, and you should be able to. Like with him, I just don't think there's any excuse either. Like, and I think it needs to be shamed too, because they are just wanting cheap labor. Like, let's be real. Sometimes that's not the case, but in America, a lot of the times it is the case. They just want cheap labor. That's horrible. It's exploitation. So, and that has to be called out because it's not good for any of us. It just isn't. It's not good for anyone. VL says Britain is so effed right now. It's beyond belief. Even infrastructure failing now due to corrupt councils not having money to maintain. I'm sorry. I hope y'all figure it out. I hope we figure it out. Like, we're the same here. Our infrastructure is crumbling, and I mean, our everything is crumbling, it seems like, but I hope it turns around. I think it will. I have a good feeling. Like, I think we're all going to collectively start to do better, but it's just hard, and it is hard to have hope, but I have some hope. I have hope for the world, honestly. I do. I think it's going to get better, but yeah, a lot of things are at their wits' end. They're like hanging on their last thread in a lot of countries and in a lot of areas. But I think the US is, it's there too. It is. I love when they point out to the UAE as a positive example. And it's like, oh gosh, I don't even know what that is, Lisa. Oh my God. I can't remember right now. But to me, it's like, I get so frustrated about political discussions, especially on Twitter, because they don't ever talk about the policy. Like, to me, it's like you should have to prove that you tried to hire American first. And they don't have that. That's not a requirement. You should not get a tax benefit for hiring a foreigner. That's not fair. Like, because they always say, like, oh, it's meritocracy. They're just better. It's like, no, because you have reverse incentives against hiring an American. That's not equal. That is not meritocracy. That is you're being led to ship a job off to another country for tax benefits and for financial reasons, or you just want to hire somebody and pay them less. It's like, that's what it is. That is not, they're better at the job necessarily. And that's the kind of shit that has to change, which to me, it's like, I would never want us to be in a position where we had so many jobs available or we needed to fill in spaces with, smart minds or whatever for us to still build and do things. And we couldn't do that. I wouldn't want that. But that's not what we have. Right now we have fuck an American and hire somebody else. That's the attitude. That has to change. That's disgusting. It's not fair. It's weirdly self-hating and self-destructive. And it's just not, it isn't productive because that person is not doing the job that they were trained to do in America with American university, American tax dollars in a lot of cases. So you're double wasting an investment. It's just stupid. So that the company can navigate these weird laws that allow and even pressure them to hire somebody foreign. Why? Why are our laws like that? Why have they been like that for so long? For so long, London. I'm just kidding. So long, Biden. Why have they been like that for so long? It's like, these are the kinds of questions that we have to ask in the United States. Why has that been there and never questioned? That's not okay. Does that mean it can be questioned in a negative way? Yeah, it can. It can be questioned in a non-productive way too. But I think we have to ask these questions. And a lot of times they don't want people to for some reason. I don't know why. A lot of the Indians here on H-1 visas are being imported and work 16-hour days so they're not deported. Yeah, and it's just exploitative. And it's just wrong. It is wrong. I've worked overseas for about 25 years total. Many countries, skill shortages are real, but Also, an immigrant can be pushed around more if the visa is tied to employer. True, I get that, but there's some issues. You know, there's always a bit of a risk or a bit of a struggle with being an immigrant. You know, there have been times where I have considered leaving the country. I'm still somewhat open to it now. You know, I would never ever revoke my American citizenship, and I would never promise to leave forever. I don't plan, you know, there will always be some times in my life where I'm living in America, but I'm open to living in other places for like certain times, you know, or whatever. And I understand, like, when you're coming to a different country, like, it's not really about you. You know, I don't talk a lot on like UK politics or even Australian or whatever politics. I don't talk about it that much because I know my place. It's kind of like a respect thing. So I don't know how involved I would be. Like, I could have my opinions on like certain policies or something, but I could never see myself being a political activist in another country. It just doesn't make any sense to me because I'm never going to have an understanding like I have of the United States. And so I'll always be vocal on US politics for my entire life, probably, or at least in my own mind. I don't know. I'm not going to be like an activist or anything, but I'm just saying, like, I'll always be vocal or have an opinion on American politics for my entire life. But it's like, I just don't, I don't know. It's just weird. Like, if you are an immigrant, it is a bit of a struggle because it is tied to something, like you said, BL, and it should be. It shouldn't be that you just come over the border and there you are. That should not be what it is. That's not good for any country because you need to have some kind of an investment when you go to another country. There has to be some kind of thing that matters to you. What, even if it is just a job, that's still something, you know, or if it's a marriage or whatever, a relationship or family, that's important. That's something. Like, you have to have some kind of an investment if you're moving to another country. Otherwise, like, some kind of investment in the country and a respect for the country. And you have to adjust. You have to, what's the word? I can't remember what the word is. My brain cells are dead right now. You have to like adapt, basically, integrate into the culture and stuff. You have to like, you don't have to lose everything about yourself, but you have to be respectful of the culture. If I were to, I don't know, like if I were to move to the UK, for example, I've been watching a lot of British television lately. And I was like, I don't want you guys to say oi or poorly. I don't like that. That's insulting to me. You said you feel poorly today. I don't like that. That's wrong. You shouldn't say that around me. Why the fuck would I live there? That'd be stupid as fuck. It's like, you're dumb. That would be very disrespectful for me to move to your country and try to tell you how to speak. That's the culture of around immigration in America. It's crazy. It should never be that way, ever. If you don't like it, then don't come here, period. It is what it is. You know, if you don't like how America is, then don't come here, period. It's stupid as fuck. It's so stupid. And it just really pisses me off too. And I know that happens in other countries too, but that's kind of the attitude. That should not be the attitude. If you're immigrating to another country, you should have an investment. You should want to integrate, or at the very least, have a deep respect for where you're moving. Like I said, if I moved to the UK, I probably would start saying poorly. I wouldn't be saying, don't say that. You're saying negative things about poor people or something. I don't know. That'd be so stupid. But I'm just saying, like, I just don't, that's the attitude people have. And most of the time people don't have that attitude when they are immigrating to a country, but a lot of times they do, and it should not be acceptable. It just shouldn't. It just should not be acceptable whatsoever. And I don't understand this idea that if you move to a country, it should change for you. That's crazy. That doesn't, like, know your place. You know, if I ever moved to another country, I wouldn't talk about the politics because I don't know as much. I don't have a word. I don't have anything to say about it. It's a respect thing. So I think people just, they don't have that respect with the United States. Like, I've seen so many people, they try to come in and like weigh in on it. And it's just like, who the fuck are you? Who are you? And no offense, but that does include Liblon. I call him Liblon because he's liberal. And everybody likes to forget that he's a liberal, but he is. He's a Liblon. Liblon is foreign. Know your place. Be respectful. Be respectful. You know? Don't say Americans are all dumb and lazy. That's not okay. It's like, you moved here for a reason. You like it here for a reason. Don't forget it. Don't you dare forget it. And don't be disrespectful. I would never say that about a place I moved to. That would be crazy. You know? No, I will say it about a lot of Australia now because I do think they're in a bubble. But I don't want to move there. So, and I wouldn't expect the bubble to change for me. You know, if I visited there, I'd be like, let's be in a bubble. Let's pretend this alternate reality is real. Like, if I was there, then I'd act like it existed because you have to be respectful. You know, I wouldn't want to move there just because I think the culture is just too different for me. But it's kind of cold, I guess. It's kind of cold. It's kind of funny how Australia is so warm, but the people are so cold. They're very cold and detached. It's weird to me as an American. It's kind of weird. But anyways, that's a whole other topic. But I'm just saying, like, I just don't understand, like, why that is an attitude. Let's see what Viel said. Many countries, if your visa is tied to employer and you leave job or get let go, you get fired. You have a very short time to leave. Now my boss asks for overtime. What do I say? No, I agree. I understand that. I understand that. It also happens to Americans too, though. Like, you can be asked to stay overtime, and if you don't, you also face punishment for not doing it. So that's not just independent of that. But that too, Lisa, like, it is exploitation. And it does happen a lot in academia too. Like, I've heard stories of people specifically choosing foreign people so they can treat them like crap, basically, because they're scared. But that's the thing too, like what Lisa's saying, if an immigrant is working there and they fear that, then the job never gets better. The job doesn't fail. A poorly run business or a poorly run system should be allowed to fail. And that immigrant labor is not allowing it to fail. So it perpetuates abuse in the workplace and it keeps getting worse. Then other companies say, well, we don't need you, Americans. So you guys can be all uppity. We don't give a fuck about you. We're going to hire someone else. So then they stay abusive. And then Americans have to deal with it too and compete to be abused by these jobs. Otherwise, you don't have a job. Period. So the whole system is toxic because it brings everybody down, essentially, because an immigrant doesn't have any leverage against a job. Americans do have leverage against a job, but we don't have that leverage if they're allowed to just bring in an immigrant to be abused. Then we have to be abused too. And it's just horrible. And that's why working conditions have gotten so bad, especially in places with a lot of immigrants, like California. The work environment in California is horrible, especially unless if you're rich. But if you have like a basic job in California, it's extremely exploitative most of the time. I don't even think I had a job. All the jobs I had in California, they were totally bad. One of them was straight up abusive. Like totally. And I had like workplace trauma from it where I had to kind of like, I got my other job in El Paso and I had to kind of heal a little bit from that. But it was very bad. So, in workplace abuse, it hits different. It's a different kind of thing, but it makes it difficult to trust a job at all or to have any kind of a positive experience. But anyways, that's a whole other topic. The reason immigrants work hard is normally because the money they make, they can buy a home or start a business back home with the money. So of course they will work harder than a local. Yeah, well, I think, and that's the thing too, VL, like it all goes back to, should it be allowed? And in what circumstances should it be allowed? I've never really blamed the immigrant other than if they come here and they're like, this is my place, like I'm gonna tell you what to do and all that crap. Those type of immigrants, no, not a fan. But in terms of like that too, as Lisa said, immigrants sending money home, it takes wealth out of the United States. So that also causes us to be poorer collectively in the United States, which again, if it's a few people here or there, it's not a big deal. But if it's millions upon millions upon millions, that wealth is leaving the country. It just creates a lot of problems. It really does, but it really does. Because that's the whole thing too with why houses are so expensive. It has to do with having to compete globally for a home. American citizens don't have any leverage because of the way that our system is. And it's not right. Because if people in China can buy American homes, for example, it inflates the prices of those homes. So then you can't buy a home anymore. It's just globalization has been a complete failure. It's just a failure. Period. I mean, it just has to stop. It's not working. It never really worked. It was just a little more bearable before, and now it's completely unbearable. So, no, like on those kind of things, like, no, you know. But I feel that way for any country. Like, I think it's the same in Canada too. Like they're totally fucked with their real estate. I mean, it's an issue all over. It hasn't worked. It isn't working. It's broken. Just stop, because it inflates everything too. Is it any coincidence that our inflation went through the roof with rampant illegal immigration? No. Especially in America where they're giving them like cards, the magic money cards and shit like that. It's horrible what has been going on. So then now we can't even compete within our own fucking grocery stores with immigrants because we don't have a magic card of money. I don't have that. Other Americans don't have that. So we have to deal with rising costs because these stores can charge more and more because they have magic money cards. That's not fair. And by the way, as Americans, we're paying for that. And then we have more inflation. So it's just been a disaster. Globalization has been a disaster. To me, it was like a weird boomer Gen X fantasy, like that somebody thought of when they were trying to write a video game or something. And then they tried to make it real and it never worked. It was never going to work. It was obvious it wasn't going to work. It was always going to be some kind of weird economic pornographic fantasy. And that's basically what it has been. It never worked. It still doesn't work. It's done. It needs to be done. I worked on a farm in the UK. Many Eastern European staff, boss loved them, not lazy like Brits, but these guys would do work a few years and go home and buy a house or two cash. The Brit workers will never buy a house on a firm wage, just working to exist. That's the thing. You know, I do think that there can be some amount of laziness, but there's also like hypo, you know? I don't know how else to describe it. Some of it is the food that we eat too. There's so many problems involved on like societal levels because many Eastern European staff, if they lived in England long enough and they ate enough seed oils and soy and PUFA and all this crap, they would probably get lazy too. So some of it is the food quality too, because that's certainly the case in the US, which is even worse. I mean, the US food quality is probably absolute trash. And so it's like that does affect things too, because it's all connected. So I don't know. I think it's very complicated. But what I don't like about the discussions is everybody tries to just be like, you're racist. You're racist. That's their big thing. And it's like, you're not racist for asking a question. You're not racist for questioning a policy. You can be racist in criticizing the policy. Sure. But have I done that? No. I haven't even mentioned race, for example. So it's like, it's not a racial question, but that's just what corporations try to get you to say so that they try to get you to shut up because they want to exploit. That's what they want to do. It all goes back to exploitation. All around. Everybody being exploited. Anyways. An immigrant on a farm is working towards financial freedom. Brit is making ends meet because he has to spend the money in the UK. I get that attitude, but I'm sure it also causes issues for the immigrant's country because it can also cause more inflation in their country too. So then what about somebody who's in Eastern Europe that doesn't go to England? Now they have to compete with somebody who did. So now they can't afford a home and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. It just keeps perpetuating. It just keeps perpetuating. It's awful. So it's just bad. I think my friend Sam, he described globalism as one of the best ways possible. He basically said it flattens pretty much everybody, but it raises up the bottom by just like 1%. And that's basically how it is. Globalism is a failure. It's an absolute failure. And like I said, I view it as an economic pornographic fantasy. Like it's something that a lot of freaking Gen Xers busted a nut to because they really thought it was a great idea. And a lot of millennials grew up believing it was a good idea and they're dumb and they never woke up that it isn't a good idea. So they just are like, you're racist. But that's all they have to say. And Gen Z I don't even know what the fuck they think about it. I have no clue. I have no idea. But I know for like financially traumatized millennials, it is like probably our biggest issue, honestly. And, you know, I understand the criticisms of Laura Loomer. I definitely do. I do think she can be inflammatory and weird. And I think she's just very unlikable as a person, which it can create problems, you know, which in activism, there's good things about being unlikable, but there's also bad. And so I do think she's particularly grating. But I understand why the issue was so important to her, even if she didn't talk about it in a great way either. I don't think you should talk about, you shouldn't call people invaders, for example, especially if they're being asked to come. That's not an invader. So it's called an exploitative company. It's called exploitation. That's what it's called. So I think we always have to remember what's actually happening, you know? So I don't know. I don't know, you guys. But I don't know what's going to happen when this all falls apart completely, which I think it's probably going to next year, the whole globalization bullshit thing. If it hasn't already, honestly, it probably has died this year. But even since COVID, it's been dying. So it's been dying like a slow, brutal death. But I don't know. I hope everybody does well. That's kind of my attitude. I'm like, I hope every country does well. Um, but you know, you got to be the change that you want to see. And you know, we got to work on ourselves, America. You know, there's problems, but um I do think there are laziness issues for sure. Um all across the board too. And I don't support laziness. I don't, for the record, I don't. I'm anti-lazy. So that's also an issue. And I've literally seen millennials praising being lazy. Like on TikTok, they'll be like, laziness is a good thing. And blah, blah, blah. And that's just some puritanical Christian narrative that you should work. And I'm like, you're a fucking retard. Sorry, that was harsh, but I just had to be real. That is stupid. That is straight up stupid to say being lazy at work is a good thing. Honey, where do you think survival comes from? If you don't do the work, somebody else has to. If you don't do the work, then somebody else has to work even harder. So if everybody's lazy, then we all die. You know, London Bridge, we all fall down. And I just don't understand that concept of celebrating laziness, which I have literally seen it on TikTok. I have seen TikToks saying it's a good thing to be lazy. From millennials, of course. If there's a bad, shitty, horrible idea that's self-destructive and causes problems for everybody, there's a millennial that made a TikTok about it, you know? Gosh. Did you see BPG get a community notice? I don't know who that is. Working too hard for no good outcome or reward is dumb, absolutely dumb. Well, there's a difference between working hard and working smart. You have to do both. So part of that is actually working for political change, which seems to be occurring in a lot of countries at this time. Part of it is working to change systems that aren't good in general, which a lot of people talk about, but they don't actually do it. But now we're actually starting to. So part of it is also, at least in the United States, I can't speak for every other country, but in the United States, you have always been able to make it here. You have, but you have to work hard. So, and a lot of millennials don't. Like, I'm going to be real because, like I said, a millennial attitude is if it's hard, then give up. If it's hard, then don't try. Every other generation worked very hard. Well, the thing is, Lisa, a lot of generations worked that much, you know, for a short period of time. You're not supposed to do that for your whole life, but you kind of like get established and then it's done, you know. But I don't know. Like you have to have a grind era. So usually people grind, you know. Look at the American dream. It's to retire early and have a passive income and play golf. That is the ultimate laziness. Um, yeah, I don't know who that is, Via. I don't know if that is the American dream. I don't even know what the American dream is anymore. I don't really know. I think the American dream is just that your kids are better off than you were, which is a lot lower of a bar. People who do 80 hours a week for more than 2 or 3 years have severe health consequences. No, of course. But like I said, people do work hard for a phase, for a time where it's like that. But you can also, you don't have to do it forever either if you are smart. So you have to work smart too. It's difficult. Trust me, I know. So what's a good example of working smart? Not being obese. It's so much harder to do anything if you're obese. Tell that to your average millennial. I can't do that. It's hard. It's too hard to lose weight. I can't do it. You get what you give, you know? It's like, yeah, it's going to be hard. Well, sure, Lisa, but that's when you do it and then you start a new business and you don't do that, you know? And I get it. People have a hard time with treating people better than they were treated because people are bitter, hateful, small-minded, disgusting, and unable to change a lot of the time. I get it. But that's the whole point of like, we don't allow the exploitation because then if nobody works for them, then they have to change that. You have to have some competition for employers too. And we don't, because you can always get an immigrant to come in and do it. You can always do that. And that's not okay because there's no leverage. There's no reason to compete for an employee. Not really. No, I agree with that too. But to me, I think like working 40 hours and then doing another 40 hours on like other stuff, or like you said, like maybe trying to start your own business or try to launch something, that's different. But I agree, working 80 hours for one job is ridiculous. That is not smart. So unless if you are really, really stacking cash, and that cash should be used towards something. So I do think that's also a cringe thing where there's like that employee mindset where it's like, I should just work a job and that's all I do forever. I don't agree with that either. Like, I think you should work towards having multiple streams of income. I mean, we're kind of getting into like really crazy topics, but my views on finances have changed a lot where it's like, I feel like you should have multiple sources of income. Also, getting married is good financially. You kind of can share a burden with somebody. Having kids and stuff, they can be supportive if you have a good relationship with them. You know, all the advice that they tell millennials to do the opposite of it. Get married, have kids, stay near your family. You know, all the shitty advice they gave millennials, all that stuff makes you really, really poor too. So that's the issue too, is like, they give millennials this fantasy of like, go live in New York City by yourself for whatever fucking reason and just waste all your money on a shitty apartment for whatever reason, for the feeling of it or whatever. You're going to be poor as fuck. Or again, be super morbidly obese and just eat whatever you want because you're liberated, girly. It's like, you're going to be fucking broke if you do that. Or go to Starbucks every day to buy overpriced coffee. Like, there are a lot of those types of habits. And the millennials will be like, oh my gosh, not you mentioning Starbucks. Da, 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 da. No, honey, like millennials, they buy a lot. They buy stuff on credit cards. They buy Taylor Swift tickets on credit cards. Like, you guys are dumb as fuck. You are stupid. And I don't want to hear, oh, I'm so broke. Of course you are. You bought everything on a credit card. Like, I'm sorry, but again, it's that millennial, it's that millennial mediocrity. Financial responsibility should be a requirement for being an adult. And millennials just miss that one And then they're like, well, I work this job and I don't get anywhere. And it's like, yeah, because you spend all your money on crap. And then you don't do it to invest in anything or invest in yourself. That's not smart. You don't get married. You don't have kids and raise them up right to support, to have family support. You cut out everybody out of your family. You cut off everyone in your extended family. So then you don't have any support. You don't keep friends because you're yourself and I don't want to change for anybody and whatever bullshit millennials say. All that shit makes you fucking poor. It makes you poor. It just does. It's bad advice. Having less people in your life, having no family connections, not having your family of your own, all that stuff, it makes you more and more poor over the long term, which it's just horrible. So that kind of stuff. And again, I'm talking specifically to millennials in this stream, but boomers have their own issues. Like if they don't want to leave a house to their kid or something, that's crazy. So that's a whole other issue because that's not supporting your family. And that is a way to piss away familial wealth if you do something like that. Which, by the way, I will never forget. There was that 90s show, which Vivek talked about the 90s. I think it's called The Five or whatever. When at the end, they all collectively sell the house so they can all go to like random colleges and like all separate and go somewhere totally different from each other and waste a bunch of money moving to other cities and having no familial connections for whatever reason. It was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, wow. Yeah, Party of Five. Yes, that's it. That was how the series ended. They all stupidly sold their parents' house for no fucking reason. They could have at least rented it out or something. Or even just kept it. Yeah, exactly, BL. They promoted it in the 90s as like this beautiful thing to like piss away your familial wealth and just throw it to the wayside to go to college somewhere and waste a bunch of money on some bullshit thing. It was so stupid because they probably went to a college they low-key couldn't afford and they all like dispersed. And it's like, that's how you get poor, which it was funny when I was watching it because I was like, oh gosh, then the 2008 crash is coming anyways. So they're all going to these colleges to do all this and they're going to be fucked anyways. So it's like, we do have to think about it too. Like, no, I agree, Lisa, for sure. It's bad. It's real cringe. But I think as millennials, like those of us that are left, we have to like be like, oh no, this is stupid. Like I can't just work a job and expect that to be the be all end all. Like I can't not own property. I can't not have a family. I can't cut everyone out of my life. Like I can't, you have to like be interconnected with people. Yes, exactly, Lisa. And they absorbed it like crazy. But that's my thing is it's like there are ways when we work together on stuff, we do so much better. We are a social species. We are not loner species. So it's like the more alone you are, the closer to death you are. And I think people don't understand that. So, and it's not just even financially, but it is also financially. If you have less support, you're in a worse position, always. And a lot of millennials, they pissed all their support away. Look at all the people that they split from their families over politics. Look at them. You think they're going to do as well financially? No, they're not. What if they lose their job or something? What if something happens? They're fucked. They don't have that support. Could you imagine what position I would have been in? There was a time when I was so angry at my mom. Could you imagine if I had cut her out of my life when I was living in El Paso? Can you imagine how screwed I would have been if I didn't have my mom's support? I would have been so fucked. Straight up fucked. But according to TikTok, your mom is this, so just stop talking to your mom. Yeah, because you're a real prize yourself, you know? And I get it. Sometimes it can be really severe. I get that. But take it seriously. And a lot of people, they don't. They just don't. They don't think it's, and it's like, damn, you know? The hick mockery of rural townsfolk and stereotypes in media was social engineering too, as were all the glamorous move to the city movies in the 80s and 90s. Yeah, I agree with that completely. And it's all a sham because you just moved there so that you cannot afford to do anything because you made other bad decisions. Like, I get living in a city. I get it. It can be fun or interesting, but you need to be able to afford it and you need to be investing in something. And I just don't know what happened in millennials' brains, but they miss the if you can afford it line. They live in Delulu world financially. And it's like, it's so much better to be financially realistic because I don't know, like I've been delusional with my ED and it's always better to be in reality. It just is. So I don't know. It's crazy town. I agree with you though, VL. There is some level of social engineering, but we have to reject it. So let's not do those things. Let's actually invest in our families. Um, let's actually support each other as friends and family, you know, etc. Like, let's come together. Let's get it together. And let's not allow immigrant exploitation. It's not good for anybody. So, anyways, that's my TED Talk today. I guess I'll go now. I wasn't expecting to say all that, but I still have to film. So I will talk to you guys. Well, I don't know if I have to. Maybe I won't. I don't know. I can film. Yes, you can, Lisa. You're on break anyway, so don't even. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.